held in China. Good evening. Peter Holland with ABC News. After repeated breaches of ALP policy, rebel Labor backbencher Graeme Campbell is set to lose pre-selection for the seat of Kalgoorlie. The last straw was Mr Campbell's weekend declaration that Labor's immigration policy and commitment to multiculturalism were stupid. Paul Keating is recommending that the ALP National Executive withdraw the Maverick MP's endorsement, a move set to be formalised on Friday.
Suspended from caucus twice, disciplined by the ALP machine more than once, now on the verge of losing pre-selection, an unrepentant Graeme Campbell was giving himself a big send-off today.
I can see the headlines now. Campbell sacked for telling the truth. Carmen Lawrence gets the bills paid for telling lies.
A lot of what Graeme would purport to stand for isn't consistent with the Labor Party policy.
Mr Campbell has always liked to see himself as doing it his way, addressing the extremist League of Rights, for instance, and declaring Paul Keating's best electoral contribution would be a state funeral. The straw which broke the camel's back was the Maverick MP's attack on non-discriminatory immigration in a weekend address to Australians against further immigration.
Immigration is an idea whose time has passed.
The comments that Graeme made on Friday relating to the party's immigration policy were an affront to the ALP.
Beyond the pale, according to the Prime Minister too, and he told Mr Campbell so this morning. What were Mr Keating's words?
I've got to tell you, mate, your time's up.
And on Friday, Labor's National Executive will make it formal, withdrawing Mr Campbell's endorsement for the sprawling seat of Kalgoorlie, which he holds with a majority of 10%. John Howard thinks he knows what it means.
I have no doubt that if Mr Campbell runs as an independent in that seat, he'll win it.
Only if John Howard directs coalition preferences to Graeme Campbell, retorts ALP National Secretary Gary Gray. But Mr Gray does admit the anti-Campbell move could hand Kalgoorlie to the Liberals. Mr Campbell himself is keeping his options open, but he does acknowledge the task may be beyond him.
Running as an independent requires an enormous amount of infrastructure. I don't know whether I could organise that infrastructure.
Whatever, it's another headache Paul Keating could do without.
In Graeme Campbell's sprawling electorate, the news was only just filtering through today.
I have reaffirmed our support to Gary Gray, but we may meet as a branch after today. I'll just wait and see.
But I think a general feeling would be surprise.
At his campaign headquarters, his wife was fielding calls from supporters.
It's not only from the electorate, but we've had calls from all over Western Australia, and I think the party probably has made a big mistake.
In Perth, criticism of the move was being led by long-time Campbell ally Julian Grill. He says it's jeopardised Labor's chances of holding the seat, describing the disendorsement as a stupid Eastern States plot.
It's been hatched in Victoria and Canberra. It has very little to do with Western Australia at all, who are much closer, people here are much closer to the realities, and it will backfire on them.
There was also disappointment from other state MPs whose electorates overlap Mr Campbell's.
It's an extremely sad day for Graeme Campbell, for the people in the seat of Kalgoorlie and for the Labor Party.
I'm sure that the reaction in the electorate will not be positive.
But the moves against the outspoken politician were welcomed by some.
I've thought this for a long, long time. I'm not alone. There's no room for those kinds of views in the Labor Party.
But there was concern about Labor's chances in the seat if Mr Campbell runs as an independent. Julian Grill says his counterpart may be looking at other options.
Well, he may well stand in the Senate, and I think that's the more likely option.
If the ALP's national executive does oust Mr Campbell, the party will call for nominations. Despite claims by some, the candidate has already been picked.
Faced with a hostile...
Resign?
Oh, well, I don't intend to resign. If I was in a situation of running as an independent or running for the Senate, I'd have to resign.
Right. Or
they'd expel me. That would be a forced situation, but I don't intend to resign at this stage.
What about the Senate? Could you win a Senate seat?
I think winning a Senate seat would in fact be easier, yes.
Now, I guess the other alternative is to, what's the fishing like right now?
Down on the Bight, the fishing's great, the March flies are huge, and it gets pretty cold in winter.
Have you checked out Noel Crichton-Brown to see whether he'll go fishing with you?
That's an idea. One thing I like about these interchanges, you get so many good ideas.
Okay. Graeme Campbell, thanks very much.
Thanks, Ray.
Graeme Campbell there. Back after the break with the incredible story of a woman who has snapped out of a coma after...
The member for the vast West Australian seat of Kalgoorlie, Mr Campbell, has spent seemingly more time attacking his own party than the opposition. He's attacked Paul Keating, Carmen Lawrence, the Greens, and above all, multiculturalism. Last Friday, he was at it again at a gathering of Australians against further immigration. And this Friday, the ALP National Executive is likely to disendorse him. In Canberra, he's with Paul Lonham.
Graeme Campbell, welcome to the program. Now, you said earlier today you knew you'd been playing with fire, so you shouldn't be surprised when you got burned. How would you describe that fire?
Look, I was putting forward a point of view which I think needs to be expressed in the community. It's a cause of concern to a lot of people. I knew it was a point of view contrary to that being put forward by ministers.
Is it a point of view contrary to party policy on immigration?
Well, we really haven't had the debate. There's never really been any debate in Australia on these issues.
But doesn't your party stand for a non-discriminatory immigration policy?
That's what the party says, yes.
And you're a member of the party?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't you sign a pledge when you were endorsed that you would abide by the policy of the party?
Well, that policy has never been formulated by the party. It's been handed down. And I say that a non-discriminatory policy is frankly nonsense. None of our neighbours have non-discriminatory policies. And nor do we, in fact, have a non-discriminatory policy.
But you've been a member of a party for many years that has this non-discriminatory policy.
Well, in fact, it doesn't have a non-discriminatory policy. It says it does, but it doesn't. I mean, if it had a non-discriminatory policy, why haven't we got hordes of people from Africa here where you probably find the only genuine refugees left in the world? Why aren't they here, Paul?
And this was also at the campaign launch of a rival party, wasn't it, that you were speaking?
It was, no,
Australians Against Further Immigration?
It was at the Christmas party of Australians Against Further Immigration, and anyone who was there would know that there was no campaign launched.
So the allegation that you actually endorsed a rival party that'll be running against the ALP is wrong?
Oh, it's absolutely wrong, yes.
And all this then led to a conversation this morning where the Prime Minister phoned you and said what exactly?
He said, I've got to tell you, mate, your time has come. And told me that factions decided that my pre-selection would be withdrawn. I've since found out, of course, it wasn't the factions, it was, in fact, Senator Bolkus and Senator Ray, neither of whom could win a seat in the House of Representatives.
And this will happen at the special federal executive meeting this Friday, is that right?
Paul, you know when they are, I don't, yes, but at the next one, I'd imagine, yes.
And will you get a chance to put your case?
I don't think democracy's got that far yet, no.
Well, let's just stop for a minute and get a feel for reaction in your electorate of Kalgoorlie today.
It's the talk of the town. The town's Kalgoorlie, headquarters of the world's biggest electorate, and home to the maverick that's become too much of a liability for Labor, Graeme Campbell.
Graham's a man of his own. He's always right and everybody else is wrong. That's the way I see Graeme.
Do you agree with that?
No, I certainly don't.
Is he a good local member?
He's a good local member, but he's not a good party member.
Should he go?
In my opinion, yes.
If he does stand as an independent, how do you think he'll go?
Well, I personally think he'll win it.
Do you think he'll win as an independent?
I reckon so, yep. I can't see anybody else knocking him off around here.
Do you agree with his policies, with his views on Asian immigration? Should there be less Asians coming into Australia?
Yes, I agree on that. Yes,
Campbell's heave-ho dominated the barroom chatter, and not surprisingly, the concerns of his close supporters.
Well, I think people are misjudging what Graeme is saying there. He's not against Asians migrating to Australia. He's against the Asianisation of Australia, meaning in our trade policies and where our future directions as a country's going.
For Campbell's wife, Michelle, it's become a fait accompli.
Is it too late? Do you think the local branch could, if they galvanise their local support and demonstrate just how popular Graeme is up here, that they could stave off his demise?
Yeah, I think it's too late. I think it's too late. I think a few months ago we went through this exercise. There is no doubt that the branch supports him, but I really, in the grand scheme of politics, I think it doesn't matter.
If Campbell does choose to go it alone at the next election, it appears he'll have the backing of business.
I think the Labor Party would be in for a big surprise if he stood as an independent. I think that the support that he would have would, I think, would really surprise them.
And who will you vote for, the Labor Party man or Graeme Campbell?
I'd have to stick to the Labor Party.
I'm at odds with him. I'll go the other way. I'll go for Graeme there, because I reckon he's doing the right thing, and the more independents we got, the better.
Well, you've obviously still got a lot of support there. What are you going to do now? Stand as an independent?
Paul, I've said that I really don't know yet. Despite the fact I knew I was playing with fire, it did come as a bit of a surprise. It was very sudden. It took the whole caucus by surprise. So I'm still considering options. I've made it clear to my colleagues in West Australia I won't make any decisions until I've spoken with them. I think that's very appropriate. But when I make a decision, you'll be the first to know.
If you were to stand as an independent, do you think you could hold Kalgoorlie?
Oh, look, I don't know. What you're faced with is an enormous infrastructure problem. You need a lot of support. I'm not sure that support would be forthcoming.
The outcome of this could be that federal Labor loses a very important seat at a time when every seat's going to be crucial.
Well, that's true, but I've always said that I was much more at risk within the Labor Party in opposition than I was in government. And I think there are people that see that it's inevitable we'll go into opposition.
Oh, you've written Labor off already, have you?
My view is we'll be defeated at the polls, yes. I mean, I've made that clear.
And do you expect to have to resign from the party if you get...
No, I don't have to resign from the party. If I chose to run as an independent or run for the Senate, I would have to resign from the party, yes. Or they'd have to expel me. That would be automatic. But I don't have to resign from the party at this stage.
And when do you expect to be making these decisions?
At 3:15 the day after Shrove Tuesday.
Not long after the federal executive gets rid of you?
I'll have to find out when Shrove Tuesday is first.
Thanks for your time.
Check your calendars, for those who don't know. Well, now to the house that Rose and Fred built, the infamous House of Horrors. We've seen the sentencing of perhaps the most brutal serial killer England has seen this century, Rosemary West.
Into the crash of a tiger moth. Graeme Campbell's fate hangs in the balance, and an amazing story of survival.
Right, and children, including their own.
The balance. The ALP's national executive is in a special meeting to decide whether or not to withdraw pre-selection for his safe seat of Kalgoorlie. When Graeme Campbell arrived at Parliament House this morning, he seemed certain his fate had been sealed.
If they were to let me off the hook, it would clearly be damaging for the Prime Minister.
The Maverick MP earlier angered Paul Keating when he attacked the Labor Party's immigration policy at a meeting of an anti-immigration organisation. Today he was offered a chance to save himself from being dumped from pre-selection. He was told that would happen if he signed his name to a letter promising never to disagree with Labor's policies ever again. But he said if he did that, he would not be worth saving. Meantime, Graeme Campbell's wife has spoken out in defence of her husband. She's accused Labor of becoming a yuppie party, while her husband remains true to the workers.
I fought with him and I disagree with him, but I would always support him.
Michelle Campbell says she's not the only one who supports her husband. The respect he has on the goldfields is enormous.
If he was going to stand as an independent, I think the LP would probably have serious problems with the seat. I mean, I can certainly say from the amount of calls that we've had, that he would draw a lot of people, Country Party people, Liberal people and Labour people would vote for him.
She says he understands and identifies with real people.
Don't forget the ALP really is supposed to represent the workers, and I think in recent times the ALP has become a little bit of a yuppie party.
Alva McNichol, GWN News.
Paul Keating and John Howard hurled insults at each other today in what could be their last parliamentary...
Graeme Campbell is campaigning to win his seat as an independent. Mr Campbell believes he can win Australia's biggest seat, but he thinks the Keating government is doomed.
Graeme Campbell came home to